Thank you for joining Sports Development Series. We yours truly, Boma Ekiyor. Our Sportdev series is sponsored by Arewa Baobab Fruit Powder, one of the most nutritious substances on the planet. Get your Baobab Fruit Powder from arewabaobab.com.
In a few weeks' time, because Koulibaly is, I've watched him for years, right? And I feel like if Koulibaly decided to play for France when he was younger, he would be in a much higher category than he is because of who he decided to represent. He does everything that Van Dijk can do. He's just as strong, just as fast, just as good with his feet. And that's going to be huge. Koulibaly to Chelsea is just going to be incredible. And how Thiago Silva's been, that defensive backline for Chelsea is looking amazing. So I think that's the most important.
Speaking of Koulibaly, one will argue that, it remains to be seen.
How was Koulibaly?
I'm sorry?
No, go ahead. You got it.
I was going to say Koulibaly, the only argument one would make is no one is going to doubt the quality and pedigree of Koulibaly. And I quite agree with Mo here that if Koulibaly had decided to turn up for France, the discussion we'll have about him today might be slightly in more revert terms than, and anyone talking about it. He's been the best defender and best center back in Serie A for the last few years. Now, the only thing one will say is that, well, he's been in Serie A for those few years, and I think a lot of people are saying that Serie A is not necessarily the top league in Europe. One would make those arguments with guys like Lukaku coming back and flopping in England and then going back and being stars over there. I would make one slight criticism of Koulibaly is that he tends to lose concentration every once in a while the ball's at his feet. And his passing is not that great, but, no one can be perfect. Otherwise, 31 years old, center backs tend to get better, with age. So we'll see how this goes. And I think this is a massive signing for Chelsea. Honestly, it's a big coup. Honestly.
Yeah. What did you make of what did you make of Koulibaly's performance in AFCON?
He did what Koulibaly does. I think they conceded 2 goals in the entire tournament. He missed the first 2 games because of COVID, but Koulibaly he barely had anything to do because when you play for a team that's so much better than everyone else, 90% of the time it's Sadio Mane and Ismail Assar and Bouna Dia that have it up front trying to create stuff. But every time something came his way, he cleaned it up nicely and he dealt with it. He had the highest completion percentage of any player at AFCON, and he was playing at the back. So his passing completed was, every time Koulibaly had the ball, that you don't need to worry. If someone's going against Koulibaly, you don't need to worry. Whether that be Mohamed Salad, whatever the case may be.
Right. I think I agree with Mo entirely here. Like Koulibaly basically was, Senegal. The basis of their team is from the back. They're solid at the back. They have the best goalkeeper in Africa, plays for Chelsea also. So that's, speaking of which, that's also going to help them as a team going to the World Cup to have their center back and their goalkeeper on the same team, so they have that consistency because you want that middle set. They have a very solid midfield with Gana Gueye. And now you have like a talisman in Sadio Mane. So if you just look at the Senegalese team, this is probably one of the better African outfits we've seen in a long time that's going to represent Africa in the World Cup.
The argument that this is arguably, on paper, the most talented African team ever. Because if you look at the teams that these guys play for, there's never been an African team with this quality. Goalkeeper plays for Chelsea. Centre backs now play for Chelsea and PSG. Right back plays for Bayern Munich. Left back plays for AC Milan. The midfielders play for PSG, Leicester. Front men play for Marseille, Bayern Munich. You know what I'm trying to say? So there's no team in Africa that you can look at all 11 players playing at the highest level. If you look at England's first 11 and you look at Senegal's first 11, Senegal have more players playing Champions League football on a more consistent basis than England do.
And it's not like they're on the bench. These are guys that start. So these are the guys that play the minute. So again, like I've said, we've talked about this before, where the Senegalese team on this podcast is basically the hope that we have. I do tend to say that sometimes they don't necessarily live up to the sum of the whole, because individually you can see like the pedigree is there, but sometimes the performances don't always match what the pedigree is in terms of output. But hey, they're maturing, and they won a major championship now. So at this point, you can kind of see that
The thing
this
that
is
I'm
their
most
time. This is definitely their time.
the thing I'm most excited for watching Senegal is when they play against these African teams. Majority of the time, they are the better team, and they sit back. The other teams sit back, and Senegal are coming onto them. I'm interested to see when a team thinks they're as good as Senegal, like Holland in the first game of the World Cup. I want to see how Senegal approach that game. I want to see if they sit back and they play on the counter attack, because they could be deadly in that way too. I want to know if they're going to decide to keep the ball and take it to the Netherlands. I want to see I want to see how they play against European teams or South American teams. That's what I'm looking forward to, because we know that they're clear of any other African nation right now, you know. So
Mohamed, let me ask you this though. I mean, so you said best African team ever. How would you compare them to the golden generation of Cote d'Ivoire, where they had the Drugs, the Yaya, the Gervinhos, and they were all playing for top teams at that time. They underachieved.
I agree. But that's only 3 or 4 of the midfield and attackers. If you look at that team at the back, it was like you had players like Didier Zokora and obviously Cheick Tiote who were playing at a decent level, but no one's telling you Didier Zokora is starting in the Champions League game. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Like,
Zokora was older though. In all fairness,
no, but regardless, Zokora's peak was never a Champions League player. Cheick Tiote, may God rest his soul, was never a Champions League player. You know, Kolo Toure was reaching his older age, although he played at a very high level. In the golden generation, Kolo Toure was kind of old. Their goalkeeper, I think, what was his name? Bobakar.
He didn't play for any top teams.
He was
not a top. He was not a top. In fact, he was the weak link on that team consistently.
So although we know these guys and they were playing at decent levels, they weren't playing for Bayern Munich and PSG and Chelsea on a consistent basis. So that's where I put the difference. Of course, Yaya Toure and Didier Drogba are Yaya Toure and Didier Drogba. But Sadio Mane is still there. But Sadio Mane also has 10 other players that also play at the highest high levels.
But you know, the thing is this: the metric that you're using is.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead now.
You can look at the Senegalese team. I think Mo is right here. I think there's hardly any doubt. It's just the pedigree. It's the proof is in the pudding. You know, the teams that they play for. It's from top to bottom. They typically have very good players. Now, maybe the bench isn't as strong, you know, as the first 11. But you know, again, one thing I would say though is I maintain that overall, I still feel like the Senegalese don't really meet the performance for what you have in the talent. And so this is their time. Having finally overcome that hurdle of being perennial, almost Rams or almost winners, and they finally actually got that championship. Let's see how they can take that mantle now and move on and represent Senegal on the world stage. The game, I would say this, and I think we've talked about this before, the game is a little bit not as fluid as I like it to be. They lack a creative midfielder. That's the one thing they do lack on their team. So, but their brute strength and their athleticism might be able to see them through. But at the end of the day, you know, they're gonna make. I see them being a quarterfinal level team, and maybe just that extra oomph might get them to the semifinal if the ball bounces their way.
If they finish top of their group, they have a pretty easy route to the semifinal. So, and I think they can finish top of their group. I don't think Holland are the best team. I think Senegal can finish top of their group. Then they probably play the USA, and then they play someone like Uruguay or something in the quarterfinals. And hey, you never know.
You're talking about paper. You're talking about paper and permutations. That's why I said the lucky bounds of the. You know, sometimes these things don't end up working out the way. You know, and then all of a sudden one team finishes second somewhere that shouldn't have finished second in that group, or Senegal ends up getting a red card in the game and they end up losing the game. You know, so again, if all things being equal, I see them being a quarterfinal team. I think that's where their level is at. But I can see a bounce or two allowing them to make a run if things go their way.
Because Mohamed, your point is valid in terms of the caliber of players and the quality of teams they play for, right? And they've won AFCON. So while I brought up the Cote d'Ivoire example, Cote d'Ivoire that team didn't win AFCON, right? They didn't.
I think they did on penalties in 2014, but that was kind of after they
No,
lost.
it wasn't
But it wasn't the team with DJ.
it wasn't the
That's
team,
already done
right?
then.
The team that should have won it lost to us in South Africa.
The
Yeah.
team that should have won it lost to Zambia in the finals on penalty kicks. That's
What
the team.
what AFCON was that? What
In
AFCON was that?
2012. And then 2013, they came
lost.
back and we beat them the next year.
We beat them
in the quarterfinals.
when they came back, they were meant to go all the way, and we knocked them out with a Nigerian team that some may argue, because we had a bunch of home-based players on that team. Some may argue that team shouldn't have even gone, and we ended up winning it, right? So, and when you compare that the current Senegalese team, and you look at the team with El Hadji Diouf and Kalidou Fadiga, that went all the way to the quarterfinals in that World Cup, I believe it was 2002, and beat France in the first game. That team, no one gave them a chance, right? So, and sometimes with African teams, when you do give them a big head and you kind of put a lot of hope on them, they tend to falter. And what do you think about that? And whether that's
I 100% agree with you. I 100% agree with you. And this is the conversation I have with my dad and my friends. And like, you can't put too much hope on African teams because there's just something holding us back, right? But the reason I feel like this could be different is because you have 10 guys playing in the Champions League week in and week out. It's different to Didier Drogba, Yaya Toure, Solomon Kalou, and then guys that are playing in the Premier League. I mean, obviously the Premier League is an incredible league, but I mean, that are playing for 9th place teams, 10th place teams. These guys are playing in Champions League finals. So I don't think this is a team that pressure is an issue. Playing in Champions League finals, competing, winning the league on a regular basis is different.
Well, yeah. So the thing about this is that I think I don't remember who it was, but it was an analyst or a group that broke down the champions of the World Cup or semifinalists for the World Cup, and they mentioned that consistently speaking, you have to have a core group of your players playing up to at least past the quarterfinals of the Champions League. And when you have a core group of your players playing at that level, that's